we'll start before time, but okay.
All right, here
We'll
we
do the
go.
countdown, and I'll be back, and then we'll introduce our guest. Hey, everybody. Welcome, listeners out there as well. I'm Doc G. This is the mayor of Rock and Roll and Friends, and we have a special guest tonight with Fran as our host, Sal Sertia as our host, and our special guest is who, Sal?
Brother Glenn Baisley,
Happy
writer,
to be here.
writer, director, producer, filmmaker, also acting.
I got no room for all that. I just put producer because there's no room for all
that. well, that's why I'm saying it now. That's why, we get that out of the way. But Brother Glenn is a good friend of mine. We've met, I think, like right after I came out of doing Oz, maybe like 2001 or something, like 24
because I was gonna say you had a song in Fear of the Dark, which was so we went into production in 1999. So I've known you probably about close to 26 years.
Wow.
Oh yeah, that's right. I was still doing Oz when
you were still doing Oz.
Wow.
And a funny story with that is before I had no computers, no phone. I had web TV. You guys remember web?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Where you pay $20 a month. You got the little box, and it takes you like an hour to get online. Just keeps going. And I looked and I said, anybody looking for songs for movies? Who's that?
My buddy Howie Garut, he runs Southern Country Radio. Hey, Howie, how you doing, brother?
Hello, Howie, baby, my man.
Another great friend of mine. Go ahead. Finish that.
Thanks for joining in and watching. And I put in, I Googled it, and I said, anybody looking for songs for movies? And then Glenn came back to me saying I have a movie called Fear of the Dark, and I'm looking for music. And I said, I have a song called It's What You Do in the Dark. I said, perfect. He's going to like this. It just sounds just like the title of the movie, and it rocks. And I sent it to him, and then that's how we became friends, and it ended up in this movie. And I got the DVD right here if you can see it.
We even had the remake too. That was the metal version, like the really metal version that was remade that was used later on the extras.
Oh.
Right. That's right.
Right.
Yes. Can you guys see this?
So you had two versions of
Hold
the
on,
song?
I'm
Is that
gonna
what
get
you're
the
saying?
pictures up too.
Sal's original version, and then it was redone, right? It was years later that we did it for the DVD release, not in the movie, but in the extras. We used the other version of it as well.
Oh, okay. So that's cool. I didn't know
right.
there was two versions.
That's absolutely right. Who's watching now? Who's this?
Adelaide, I don't know that person. Do you? Anybody know that person?
Is that a friend of yours, Glenn?
Newcomer. Hey, Adriano.
Hey, welcome, Adelaide.
Oh, Adelaide. Okay. Well, we got a lot of people tuning in.
But no, so you had a lot of music. So Sal, you're saying so you had a lot of music in his movies, and you starred in a lot of his movies, correct?
Yeah, because he already did the movie Fear of the Dark. So I mean, we met, the movie was finished, right, Glenn? And I got a song in there. But after that, we became very good friends. And then any movie he did after that, which I have all here, a big part of it, I was acting in them, and also giving Glenn music for the movies.
You did a song for Fairview Falls. You did one for Into the Father.
Okay, you did a lot then. So I got to ask you a question because I was reading this. It was very interesting. It said that you loved writing this from a child, and you said in your preteens you created stop motion short films, and you're with your father with an 8mm camera at age 13. That's impressive. I like that. I read that.
I started
wow.
Pretty early on with stuff. I mean, by the time I was in a teenager, it's funny because I don't know if anybody remembers, NBC had V, with the Visitors.
Right.
And what was kind of cool about that is one of the effects guys had retired at that point, and he's actually the person who taught me how to edit. at like the local community channel. So by the time I was like 16, I was producing, directing, hosting like local
Wow.
community shows, won a local award. And just always gained my interest. So I went off from that, and studied film and writing and unfortunately, I had taken a break from it for a while, and then I came back. I said, finally, it used to be the case where buddies of mine, we get together and we watch like these B movies or even the big tentpole movies. And we always kind of be like, well, poke holes at them. And kind of the fun thing, it's like poke holes at. It's like, well, why did they do this, or why didn't they do this, or especially like the big tentpole movies, like with all the
Right.
budget they have, why are some of these stories so bad? And joking, one of my friends turned to me one day, he said, well, why don't you just make a movie? I'm like, sure. So,
Right. Right.
it's like beg, borrow, steal. And, against the odds, everybody was telling me, you can't make a movie. Start with a short film. I'm like, nope, I want to do a feature. And so, I'd always wanted to do something drama, but horror was also close to my heart. And at the time, I mean, the only thing coming on the scene was MySpace. There really wasn't any way
Oh
like there
God,
is
yeah.
today to publicize yourself. And I said, wow, there's these local horror conventions. There's Chill at Theater. I said, what if I were to go
Mhm.
down to these things, rent the table, start promoting for this thing? And soon enough, over the years, I became kind of a staple on the convention circuit as I was building a name up for myself. And that, and what's interesting about Sal, that's one of the first times we met was at the Chiller Theater. Uh,
Mm.
but the funny thing with Sal is that, we became good friends. And I said, well, let me put you as a small part, in Tenement, because we'd already written the movie at this point. So I said, let me put you in this part. And it became sort of this next thing. It's like, well, then in Sins of the Father, it was a bigger part. And then I said, well, now, I said, well, Fairview Falls, I said, I want to make him one of the central characters. So his character kind of progressed. He's one of the only few characters throughout my series of movies that actually lives.
Oh, that's
Becomes
funny.
like the hero in the movie, and it's like, well, you can't get, every time I'm like, I'm going to kill Sal, I'm thinking about, everyone's like, you can't kill Sal. So Sal never dies, Although I keep threatening him, I said, one of these years, I said, I do have an idea for a sequel that's never happened. I said, where everybody dies. He finally doesn't escape. But it's funny because every movie you see him, he's got a different venture. He's a bartender, then he's running a bar, then he's running a a garage. So he's got more
And
jobs than I've seen anyone else in the
That's
movie.
funny. That's funny.
on that note, you just mentioned the garage. Paul Ali just said something. Paul Ali, Glenn, I don't know if you know if that Paul. There he goes.
Sure, hey, Paul.
I don't know if you know that that's the same Paul who does the posters. The
Sure, yeah,
poster. Yeah, you knew that, right?
yeah,
Yeah, he
Now,
just said, "Good to see you again, Glenn."
yeah. It's good to see you.
but
It's been a long time,
Fran,
Paul.
Fran and Gene, Paul was also. I brought them in 2 movies. When Glenn put me in the movie, I said, I'll bring my friend Paul in. So Paul's in the tenement at the bar scene, right?
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He gives what's the name? $1. What's his name? The one who Cinderville passed away. Rest in
Yeah.
peace. And also and Sins of the Father in the gas station scene. Me and Paul went up to upstate again, and we did the scene together. Me, Paul, right? And
Right.
what's his name? Rich, the guy who says, "I need
Rich
answers."
Redmond. Yeah, Rich Redmond.
So Paulie's also in Glenn's movies as well.
Yeah.
oh, that's cool. I didn't
Yeah,
know
we
that.
had a lot of fun driving up there. We had a good time, and
Oh,
the
that's
whole day
good.
mountains
So,
there.
so anyway, so you have I was reading you have like Fear of the Dark. That was your first movie.
Right.
And then The Tenement, which I saw a lot of these things. It was scaring the hell out of me. Sins of the Father, Fear of the Dark, and what is this? Brain Damage Films. Is that
That was
your
the
company?
distributor. Yeah, no, that was the
That's
distributor put out the original
distributor.
releases. But yeah,
Okay.
the last movie was Fairview Falls, and then I did, much to my regret, I did it as a web series, but it basically was the equivalent of feature length film, an anthology series called Tales of Light and Dark, which is available. You can see that on YouTube,
Yeah, I saw that.
and that's literally the equivalent of a movie. I mean, it took as much to do that as it did as a movie. And in hindsight, I wish I'd gone back and I did that as an anthology movie.
Hmm.
And rather than putting that out to the world for free.
So what is that about? Now it says that's a recent project of yours, right? Tales. Was it
That
again?
was, yeah, that was
Tales of Light Dark.
little over 10 years ago. But yeah,
Okay.
that one was an anthology series. So, there's serial killers in it. Well, it's mostly serial killers. That seems to be my thing. But yeah, there's four different stories that's in it. And one of them is well, I don't want to give too much away. You definitely want to go see it. There's a thread that goes throughout it. So there's a connecting tissue, if you will. Very much like The Tenement has sort of this connecting tissue.
Mhm.
But it's definitely worth checking out. One of my favorites is called Open Call, which is about an actress that goes on these open calls, and so I'm sure you recall from your early days, like what cattle calls are like, what they call a cattle call, where it's just
Yeah.
they herd you in. There's nonstop people, and it's in
Yeah.
out, in out, in out. So she's a struggling aged actress, and wanting to get back, recently divorced, and so that
Oh,
has a
that's
bit of a
neat.
twist. That's one of my favorite ones in that series.
So I like that. So it sounds like all your movies coincide. They all follow each other in a pattern as
That's
Pretty
they
it.
much
go
everything
along.
exists within the same universe.
Right.
There's cases where I've used the same actors to play different characters. But for the most part, pretty much everything, kind of like I've always been a big fan of Stephen King, everything pretty much exists within the same universe. So there's always some little kind of Easter egg in everything that will refer to something else, whether it's a throwaway to a town that's mentioned in one of the other ones or something like that.
Oh,
And then, like, I was always a big fan of Kevin Smith, where he reused the same actors to play different parts in his movies that were all in the same universe. So I'm like, well, if he could do it, I could do it.
so you said you like the serial kill thing. You know that I live literally a half a mile from the Gilgo Beach serial killer.
Oh, wow.
I knew
Wow.
him, his wife, his family. They come into my store,
Wow.
so that's
Wow.
why when you said serial killer, I'm like, yeah, I pass
Mm.
the house every day, and it's like crazy. And when you said serial killers, I'm like, were you ever like interested in doing something with with that, or because that's crazy? I mean,
Well, it's interesting because the genesis of my killer. They always say you draw inspiration on what you know. And when I was a kid, I was probably in my early preteens or teens. I'm trying to. It's been so many years now. And my uncle had told us about, well, we learned after the fact. He told us about, more in detail. There was a guy that lived not far from him, and he was like the father of the year, and he always had the block parties,
hmm.
barbecues. Everybody loved this guy, and so one day he kills his family with a shotgun, and he dives off the bridge, the Bear Mountain Bridge, and when they went into his house and they started, investigating, what they found was he had almost like this black like suit, like almost like a cat burglar suit, which is kind of where I drew inspiration for the Black Rose Killer. He wears this black suit, all black,
Mm.
and they realized for I don't know how many years he'd been ripping off all of his neighbors. So
Oh,
it goes to show who knows, you
yeah,
never
you don't
really
know. You don't know
know
your neighbor,
what
right?
drives somebody. I mean, and then, up by where I live, where I grew up, there's always been things, growing up. I mean, there was a lot of satanic occult activity
Yeah,
in the mid '80s.
yeah,
That there's nods to that in Fairview Falls. So I've drawn inspiration about a lot of different things. Fairview Falls is originally started out to be very semi-autobiographical, and then I kind of chickened out and I changed it because it was too close. There was a lot of things personally was hitting too close to home, but there are characters in there that really drew inspiration. Carrie Taylor plays a character who has daddy's fixations and dates older men. I knew somebody like that, went to school with somebody like that. Somebody that committed suicide. I, knew somebody like they were constantly bullied, committed suicide. So, the guy that was the badass, which is the Chopper character in Fairview Falls, who sort of has this kind of weird sweet side and he deals drugs. I knew somebody like this. So everybody, there was a little bit of everybody I knew growing up kind of woven into these characters.
yeah, yeah. See, that's good. So you get these are real life people you're talking about, right? And then you wove it into your mind, and you set,
Right.
and then what do you got? Sal's got all the DVDs in the world.
That's Fairview Falls, the movie you're talking about.
Fairview Falls. Yeah. And on the
Yeah,
cover is the late Michael Valenzano.
nice.
He played the killer in Fairview Falls, and Joe Policastro he was one of the lead characters, and then of course our other Joe who sadly
Very,
passed away, who played the Black Rose Killer.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I've known multiple Joe.
A lot of those young guys that were in Glenn's movies, so many of them
Yeah,
passed
I
away.
mentioned Joe Policastro because he just celebrated his birthday, I believe, is today. So if you're happy to see this, Joe, happy birthday.
That's
Yeah.
probably
Happy
what we're
birthday.
talking. Happy
Yeah.
birthday, brother. He was a great guy,
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun working with those guys. They were all cool,
Yeah.
everybody. You know, we had a lot of fun. And in Glenn's movies, you got like a lot of horror scream queens that are really really popular, like Debbie Rochon. Debbie Rochon's in a
And
lot of
she's
Glenn's movies.
fantastic. She was so great to come down and be able to do that small part, but she makes such a great moment when she works opposite or plays opposite Michael Gingold in Fairview Falls,
Right.
and also with Carrie Taylor.
Carrie Taylor. Uh,
Yeah,
have
you
we
figure,
had,
Carrie Taylor started out, as a scream queen. We had
yeah,
Cindy DeVille was a scream queen. We had Debbie Rochon. We had Susie Lorraine.
Susie Lorraine.
Uh, you
Right.
know, yeah. So we've had quite we yeah. I mean, we've had oh God, I know I'm forgetting somebody in here. See, now I have to look. My brain is a little mush. I apologize in advance because I've been fighting a really bad virus. So
No.
CJ DeMarsico, who was a short-lived scream queen. She kind of left the industry, but she did quite a few things in a brief stint. Was fantastic to work with.
And Cindy DeVille was very popular in the horror
Yeah,
movies. She passed away
yeah,
too.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
like
But
Cindy
yeah,
DeVille.
you think about actually, I was thinking about that today. The number of people that we had the opportunity to work with that have passed away. Like I said, Joe Lauria played the Black Rose Killer. Sin passed away. There's been a number of people. Pete Barker, who played the older Ethan Fernier, which is the older version of the serial killer, passed away.
Mhm.
So there's been so many people that, great talent that we've worked with. And it's weird to think about, that Fair of the Dark at this point, the movie's like 25 years old now. So it's really
That's
kind of
insane.
crazy to think about it, yeah.
Yeah, it goes fast. Let me tell you,
Yeah.
years fly.
Glenn, I got a
And
question for you too.
Sure.
I wanted to ask you, as a producer or director, do you sometimes see a scene significantly different from a script? In other words, you start acting out on the script and you say, well, wait a minute, let's change this around, let's tweak it. And, it ends up on the editing floor and you want it. And you suddenly change your mind. You say, wait a minute, this works better in the movie. Do you
Yeah.
ever suddenly do that?
That's
Or
that's happened. There's a kind of number of instances where variations that's happened. I mean, for the first movie, as a first time director, you love every scene. Everything you do, it's like,
it's your
yes, this
baby,
is the
it's your
best thing
baby,
ever.
Yeah.
it's your
And
baby.
Fear of the Dark was originally 2+ hours when I was self-distributed originally before it got picked up by Brain Damage Films and was released actually after Tenement. And there was an opportunity. I said, well, there's going to be a DVD release. I went back and I cut it. And I think it's like 93 minutes or 97. So it's substantially cut down. All the deleted scenes are on there, but I think it flows much better.
Mhm.
I've always said it's like, well, if I could go back and recut Tenement, there's about 10 minutes I would trim out of the first story in Tenement. Everything else I think is pretty solid. Sins of the Father was very much an experiment for me. I don't know that I would trim much of it. Fairview Falls probably wouldn't. But it's interesting because I kind of played, experimented with each movie. So Fear of the Dark, the idea was, 20 something years after the events of this serial killer killing spree, and how does one victim cope with that throughout their life? So that's kind of the premise of that movie. Tenement goes back and looks at over a series of decades all the sort of evil that's happened in this town, and looks at all these different serial killers and the kind of the root, the origins of this evil. Then when you go to Sins of the Father, it's told from the perspective of the Black Rose Killer on his deathbed, who now wants some kind of redemption, and tells his story to the father of one of the victims,
Hmm.
from the original movie. And then Fairview Falls looks at it, the sort of trickle down of what's happened in a town where there's been so much shame, there's been so much sin, there's been so much ignorance and denial, and what does that do to the younger generation?
Mm.
And it also explores a little bit more of even the origin even more. And I do have sort of one more in me. I don't know at this point. I may eventually just write it. I'm not a young man anymore and kind of been having some health issues. So I don't know if I would have the stamina to go back. But I do have another one, which is it would be the end all, the finale. It's the end cap. It ends everything. But I mean, for the most part, Fairview Falls kind of has an ending. I think before Marvel was doing all these, hey, let's throw another stinger after the end. I have a stinger after the end of the end credits, which kind of does sort of leave it open for something else.
Mm.
One day I want to revisit. I even entertained the idea of doing sort of an old school radio play kind of thing and put that out on the internet. Never say never. At one point I even had, and it got to the sort of the 11th hour, and then it didn't happen, unfortunately. Was very deep in development on a video game, a light gun shooting video game. That
Okay.
they had, the game is out there, but they were building out the additional content that was specifically built, and I did an all original story. We shot all new material for it, which I still have. I own it, so I may do something with that because I fell in love with that story, which is something, again, very different, moves in a different direction, and deals with witches, which is something I've never done.
Oh, that's
And,
scary.
so now everybody's doing witches. They went from
Yeah.
vampires to werewolves to puppets. I don't know.
Well, the Harry,
The latest trends.
like the Harry Potter series, that thing was
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Now, you see
Wow.
the movie The Tenement that I'm holding up now?
Yep.
Recently, not too long ago, my friend Chad Watson, he said he was in somewhere in Texas or somewhere in Chicago. I forgot what he said, but he was at a car wash. And you
Yep.
know when they sell like DVDs or CDs on the
Mhm.
rack that you
Mm.
spin around?
Yeah.
The Tenement was on the rack.
Oh,
he
that's
said,
so funny.
somewhere in Texas.
You see?
Yeah.
And Chad's
You
done some
never
music
know
for the
where.
movie as well.
Never. Yeah.
And this was a good a good relief because I mean, everything Glenn put out was distributed. It's it's not like there's a lot of people that do independent films, great movies, but
Yeah, no,
they don't
that's
even
good.
get them out
Yeah,
there.
you're right.
Everything
You're right.
Glenn did
Yeah.
was on the brain damage film. It's a horror independent companies, but they got it out there. It was in stores. You could
We've
go
been in something like a dozen countries,
right,
Wow.
internationally with the movies. Yeah.
and
There's a lot
everybody
of
used
there's
to,
a lot of horror all over, like Germany and China. They like Japan, all those countries. They love horror. They
Yeah.
do. They love
And
horror.
I'm proud to say, man, I'm old school. I was on Netflix when they were doing discs.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
I know that too. Trust me.
me too. Yeah,
I'm down that lane.
get it in the mail. You say a lot. I think
Yeah.
about 3 times I got a DVD in the mail broken. They
Yeah,
were
me
like,
too.
"Ah."
I still wish to this day, when I knew they were getting rid of it, I should have rented and just capped the disc just so I had it in the Netflix wrapper for myself. And I regret having not done that.
Oh,
the
Yeah.
the red envelope. It used to be a red envelope.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And now, Glenn, tell us a little bit about. I mean, last time I saw you when we filmed the thing for Joe Spinell, I did an interview for you all about your box set. Is that still
Yeah,
in the
so
works?
I've been working slowly but surely over the past few years and putting together for some extras. I've had some people that have approached me about wanting to potentially put out all the work. So I've been kind of in the background in between other projects, working on doing documentary stuff. Um, and I'm not saying you, Sal, but I learned the hard way. It's like, wow, so many people that I've worked with passed away, and even the documentaries I do now, so many people that I've worked with have passed away. And I'm like, nobody's getting any younger. Let me start collecting these interviews and just do things. And so, I can work on it as I have time, because I'd like to eventually, everything is out of print now at this point.
Yeah.
Actually, Fairview Falls is the only thing you can get digital through Amazon. But otherwise, everything else disc wise, you can still find them on eBay and some places online. They're out of print. I said, I'd like to be able to bring them back out and do some new extras and things like that. So that was something that, I recorded some new interviews with Sal, and Mike Lane, who's one of the actors in the movies, when we met up and did the Spinell interview. And, it's funny because I want to point something out too about Sal. I have never once in my entire life met somebody that knows so many people like
Yeah.
Sal knows. Sal knows
Everybody.
everybody.
That's right.
Everybody. somebody that Sal does not know.
Exactly.
You know,
I know.
and it's like Sal is his personality. You can't not like Sal.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
like Sal just like gets in,
Yeah.
Yep.
in with everybody, into every crowd. He's like one of the
Yep.
most likable people I know of.
Yep.
You're
It's
gonna
like
make me cry, brother. You're gonna make
it's
me cry,
funny
and it's
too. And
so
by the
But
way,
he's right. He's
He
right.
is right. I agree. I agree.
I came
thank you.
across this the other day. Actually, Diana came across this the other day. See if I could. I don't know how easy it's going to be. See if I can get it so it doesn't blur out. If I bring it close to the camera, it's going to blur out. This is from your 50th birthday party.
Oh
It
my
was
God.
one of the giveaways. I still have it. It says thanks
Oh,
for popping into the Mayor Rock and Roll surprise 50th birthday party, October 23rd, 2010. It's the
Oh,
bag of
whoa,
popcorn
man.
from your 50th birthday.
Oh, so
can you
cool.
believe that? Can you believe that? That's already
Oh.
14 years ago.
And
Wow.
I wonder if it still pops. I don't think I'm going to try it, but
That's a collector's item.
It's a
Shoot,
memento. Yeah,
man.
sure.
But like I was saying about Sal, what's interesting is that one of the really fun story, and I don't know if you've ever told this on the show, Sal, about Spinell. There was a movie called The Last Undertaker. And The Last Undertaker, Michael Gingold at the time was working for Fangoria magazine. I do a lot of work with him. He's a friend of mine and business partner. We do a lot of documentary work together these days. He's also was an actor in a number of my movies. And so Sal had this bootleg VHS that he'd gotten from Spinell. Right? Am I selling that right? He's got it from
Yeah.
Spinell? Yeah.
Joe
And it
Smith.
was an unfinished version of The Last Undertaker. So I'm telling Mike, and Mike, if anybody out there happens to know Michael Gingold, all I can say, or if you don't, Michael Gingold is like a walking encyclopedia for horror movies. So for him
Oh.
to have never heard of this thing, to me was mind blowing. He's like, no, got to see it. So when I finally showed him, I thought his head was going to explode. So, of course, he did a whole article on it. And it was one of those things that kind of ruminated for years. And we talked to, every time I had an opportunity working with different distributors, I mentioned the Vinegar Syndrome who'd put it out. I said, you guys should have went to, because they did a Spinell documentary. You should have went to Sal Searchy. I told you guys about it. He could tell great stories. So finally, when, a distributor went to put out Last Horror Film, I said, they said, hey, you still have this connection? And I'm like, absolutely. And so that kind of went, it was great because all these cassette tapes that you'd sat on for years, I think you'd put them out, but not many people had heard them, with answering machine tapes that you'd kept to Joe. A little creepy, but funny. And I'm thankful
Oh,
that you did it
yeah.
because it's great for
God.
people to hear. Different side of Joe that most people probably don't know,
Yeah.
or included on this disc. So, I mean, it's great, because I mean, Sal told a lot of great stories about Spinell, and I think it was a great addition to the disc.
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
even a lot of people who have seen it, people that I've never even met, who after they watch it, I guess they look for me on Facebook or Instagram, and they say, "Oh my God, that was like one of the best interviews about Joe." One or two people told me you have him down packed, the way you act like him, the way you joke around acting like him, so all that stuff. And they said, "My God, you could play Joe Spinell if they ever did a Joe Spinell movie." With I do him so well, but I used to hang out with him every night, for the last 2 years of his life. So that worked out fantastic, And
it was an opportunity for you to dispel a lot of the rumors too that I know were out there for the longest time. Like one of the biggest one was about what I think, if I'm going to tell this right, correct me if I'm wrong, that the police, when they came in, they found a severed head, and so all of this stuff that they that grew into rumor. It's like, no, none of that happened.
Yeah, I told the story when Glenn filmed me, and it's on that on the Last Horror Film DVD, well, Blu-ray. I told the story exactly how it was. So I mean, for so many people that didn't know exactly what happened, and when I first saw the Joe Spinell story on the Maniac release, and it had all these, because they were trying to find me, but I had changed my number and had a non-listed number because I had people like pranking me. And no one was able to get in touch with me, William Lustig, or none of them. So they did a Joe Spinell story, and they had everybody else in there but me. The only thing of me is this picture of me, the famous picture with Richard Lynch and the dude from the Jets. And that's the only thing that's in that video. And that's, and I met William Lustig. And he said to me, he said, "Oh my God," he said, "I could have used you so bad when we filmed that Joe Spinell story, So But now the truth all came out because they were
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, the police came in and his head was on the TV and there was blood everywhere." Meantime, none of that was true at all. You know,
He probably would have got a kick out of it though if he heard that. You know, if he was still alive and heard those stories, or he could hear those stories. You know,
oh,
I'm sure he would
man.
have got a kick out of it.
The effects when you guys did a movie like that, like the blood and all that, like did you have special makeup people come in, or I mean, because some of that stuff is crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, I've had the benefit of working with a number of greats. You know, and one of the more recent people that worked on stuff was Brian Spears, who went off to work on. He worked on the Netflix Marvel shows. He's done so many amazing horror movies and won so many awards. You know, Anthony Eichner was one of my first effects people that worked on Fear of the Dark, and then Gene Mazza also worked on Tenement. Pete Gerner. So I've been blessed to work with a lot of really great talent over the years, who've all far surpassed me. You know, but I'm always happy for anybody that you know, because they deserve every bit of accolades. You know, they've more than earned their spot. You know, just amazing work.
Yeah, it's very important with special effects and editing. Those two are the main, like I'd say, light, special effects, and sound, all of that put together. But the special effects makes the whole movie.
And I'm a big fan of practical effects. I think CGI effects are too overused. I think there's, you know, if you can touch it to me and it feels more realistic, I think, you know, it has more of an impact.
Right.
You know, definitely.
Sins of the Father. This is Sins of the Father. When Paul, who's watching right now, Paul Ali, he came up with me to do this, and he was just supposed to be standing in the garage. And I said to Glenn, "Give him some of my lines." Remember that, Glenn? I said, "Give Paul a few of my lines." Paul's probably laughing right now. He said, "Yeah, he helped the town crazy. He came to his rescue."
But, you know, that goes back to something earlier that Doc was saying. You know, is that when you're asking me about, you know, about adapting things, and sometimes when you see it, does it change? You know, and yeah. So I mean, there's many times where you go to shoot something and it doesn't play out, and you change it, or sometimes you just don't have a choice, and circumstances dictates that you have to change it. You know, one of the final days that we shot, we had to keep postponing the shoot. We're in this old abandoned ranch, a famous ranch back in the day, Cimarron Ranch. You know, John Wayne used to come up. Everybody used to come up to this famous ranch, but it was, you know, the only thing was on it. They had a corral that was still on one part of it. The rest of the ranch was all dilapidated, and we were able to get access to be able to use it. We were using it as, you know, this part of this old you know, like Hollywood lot, or, you know, is sort of the backdrop for this particular scene. And I've been trying to shoot the scene all summer. Wanted to shoot it off first because it was supposed to have a lot of energy in it. But the day we shot it, you know, it was just dismal and dank and raining, and just, you know, so the energy unfortunately wasn't there as much. And then on top of it, one of the main characters in the scene didn't show up. Turned out his best friend passed away, and he just didn't show up. You know, couldn't deal with it. And Sal showed up, trooper that he is, professionally is, was sick as a dog, and also saved the day because every single one of the lines that was on that character, Sal literally, and I think 20 minutes, half an hour, and I'm talking about a big monologue, learned all this while I think he might even be running a fever. He was sick as a dog.
I was sick, plus I had a bad toothache.
Oh,
yes, yeah.
You were angry too.
Wow, man.
Yeah. And
that was
hold it off, man. It's like, thank God for Sal, because I honestly don't know what we would have done.
Thank you. I totally forgot all about that I saved the day with that actor didn't show up.
With one of the things where we couldn't have pushed it again because some of the actors were leaving for other projects. I'm like, okay, this is a make or break. We have no choice. And that was a hellish shoot day.
You're like Mighty Mouse. You're like Mighty Mouse. You saved the day. Sal.
That's what I got to say to you guys too, because I was in a movie years ago, and that's how I met my co-partner in Iron Horse Films, because he was, my daughter was the lead in the movie, so I tried to be like the dad that could do everything behind the scenes, and I did the audio, the boom mic, and everything. And the guy that was supposed to play the psycho war veteran never showed up. Well, my back was hurting real bad that day, so it ended up being I was a psycho war veteran. I ended up being in the movie.
Do what you got to do.
Sorry, my
Sometimes it
cat
just
just
works.
knocked my phone over. Sorry, you gotta
Sometimes it
see in the
just works,
picture.
Glenn. You know?
Yeah.
Yep. Sometimes you do what you got to do. Yeah. I mean, and then there's things that, you don't plan for. Like I never originally intended on having nudity in some of the scenes. I got pressure for, like, I mean, when we did Peniment, movie was done basically, and the distributor at that point is like, yeah, I'm not releasing it until you go back and put, you know, literally said tits and ass and more gore in the beginning, and I'm like,
Yeah.
they're like, I want it in the first 10 minutes of the movie. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Well, it keeps the audience going, is what he'd say, right?
And I wasn't all about that. I mean, at
Yeah.
that point, I'm like, well, what the hell, So we went back and shot this opening, and that's one of the scenes actually that I would go back and I would trim some stuff from that because it was never really intended to be in the
Yeah.
movie. I mean, it works, it's fun, but it's also one of those things where you learn. It's like, especially on low budget independent stuff. It's like one of the old things. I many years ago, Lloyd Kaufman, the president of Trauma, had said, "You always do your nude scenes first." Well, in Fear of the Dark, I didn't do that. And the very last scene that we were shooting was a nude scene, and actually served a purpose because at that point, I'm like, I'm not going to put the nudity in it unless it served. It actually, it worked. And so the original scene had somebody in a bathtub, and and it wasn't gratuitous, but they're soaking themselves or whatever,
Right.
and all of a sudden just blood starts, like a rip opens and just blood starts shooting out in between, like their
Oh.
chest, like their upper chest.
Ooh.
And I thought it would have been a great, and then she wakes up and you realize it's a dream.
Right.
And I thought it was going to be a great moment. And the day of that, she refused to do it. And I'm
Oh.
like, so the scene just does not play out at all like it should have been. And that's one of the things I look back and I'm like, and I mean, you learn too over the years. I go back and there's certain things I cringe. I'm like, if I could have done this better. But I mean,
Yeah.
I look at it too, and I'm like, the fact that I can say, and I shouldn't say I did it myself because the movies would never have happened without a team. But to still go back and look at it, it's like, okay, I self-funded the first movie myself. I made everything happen myself on this, and I got it out there against the odds.
Right.
When I look at a lot of this stuff today, and somebody can go on and put something on YouTube, and 5 minutes later, it's got millions of views.
I
There
know.
was none of
Isn't
that
that
back
crazy?
there.
Yeah, is that
Isn't
crazy?
that crazy?
You know.
Well,
That's crazy.
we do have
Yeah.
a question for you, Glenn. I don't know if you
Sure.
can read that, but I'm going to read that for the
Yeah.
audience. Any redubbing where they have to re-record the voices for this films in this movie, or did all the sounds and voices come through with more editing?
There were two cases.
Neon.
One is when Sins of the Father was originally shot. It was before we had Joe Policastro's character that comes into Fairview Falls, and actually I started working on Fairview Falls before Sins was released, and so you never see the person on camera that is supposed, introduces himself as his characters in Fairview Falls. But I went back and I redubbed him in saying the lines, but the funniest moment was Cindy DeVille, God rest her soul. When she screamed like a man.
Oh.
And I had to have somebody redub her screams in. That was probably the two biggest things that we had to do for redubbing. But on the note of redubbing, when the movie when Tenement was released in Germany, I wish I could speak German because I would very much like to know how it plays out. They put which the equivalent of an NC-17 on the movie, and this is the bane of my existence is I'm not going to give them too much credit. Brain Damage Films, I could just say they did not do right by me, and but unfortunately, when that movie was released in Germany, I did not have rights on it was one of those fine print things that I was
Oh yeah. Yeah.
too stupid enough to realize at and too green to know better. But they recut the movie, they rescored the movie, and the final movie, like all the gore is cut, but I don't know how the movie could possibly make sense. And of course, it's redubbed in German, and there's no subtitles, so I don't know if they even change the dialogue.
I know somebody. My nephew's girlfriend is from Germany. She's here for about a year, and my son speaks German. I should let them watch that and see what
I'd be
goes on.
very curious to see,
Yeah,
have to watch both versions and see if it makes any, because I can't imagine the movie makes any sense.
yeah.
I
I'm
can't
gonna
imagine it.
actually. I gotta get the link for that and let her
Yeah,
watch that because she's from Germany. She just came in,
yeah.
and I'm gonna. And actually, she loves horror, so she might even know
Oh, she'll
she
love
might
it.
know
Yeah.
any of this.
And from
Yeah,
my from my understanding, at least from speaking to the distributor, it even played in I think like German art house theaters.
yeah.
Oh,
So
Pass.
I can't imagine an audience walk. I'm like, I don't know. It's just it's weird.
Send
You
me
know,
that link, and I'm gonna go. I want
I'll have
her
to
to.
I'll have to upload send you a private copy because it's not
Yes,
online, but I'll have to
yes.
get you a copy of that. I'd
I
be
want her to
curious.
look at that because she's pure German, and she might be, and
Right.
then she might even know about this. I'm gonna. Just she's from Berlin, so I don't know, where this
Yeah. And it's been
shoots from.
released in a number of countries under different names too.
Okay.
So, like in Russia, it's been under multiple different names. I think in Germany, it's been under multiple different names. But it is in different box sets. It's been released, and
Mm,
it was one of the things that unfortunately too is even after the agreements ran out, the distributors were putting it out there for many, 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 many years afterward, and I never saw a dime on it. In fact, the sad part of it is I
oh,
really never saw much on these movies at all,
it's so
because as being green, the thing that I learned where I was burnt, because I didn't have enough money to hire a proper attorney, and this is the sad part, is that they had a thing called, basically said, okay, until they get back to recoupables, the marketing expenses, you don't see anything on it.
yeah.
Well, if you look at, and I hate the cover, the only cover I had complete creative control is on Fairy Falls. I hate all the other covers. Fear of the Dark, the character that's on that is from The Tenement, has nothing to do with that movie. They thought, oh, the character looks better, so we'll put it on there. The Tenement, the building that's on the cover is actually um, is not the tenement building. Let's just say that. And at the time, I didn't really fully have permission to use that building, so I was like, "Oh my god, oh my god!"
Oh,
And I ended up meeting the owner, who owned it later on years later, and he got a good laugh out of it. But it's those kind of things. Sins of the Father, again, it's generic
yeah,
graphics.
yeah.
But the thing is, for those generic graphics, and now, I do marketing, also professional marketing, having done different things, and knowing the amount of time or what typically it costs for things, they were saying it's like, I think for the cover for like Tenement, it was like $10,000 or $15,000. I'm like, bull.
yeah,
That,
Yeah,
really.
yeah,
so I
you
had these crazy trumped up costs for everything to ensure I would never see a dime from it. I
Oh,
think the most I ever saw out of all three movies completely, and I put it back into the costs of the financing of all the movies, I think might have been a little over $3,000. Yet Fear of the Dark pulled out three printings. Tenement, I was told, was one of their most successful movies. That was in something like I said, at least a dozen countries. I had actually met with, um, in passing, was called MIB, I believe, I don't even know how, Mittelstadt or something, whatever. When he happened to be at a convention, and it told me that it was one of the most successful movies that they had
wow.
over there. So I know, I've seen the numbers to some degree, what they allowed me to see, and copies were huge. The number of, but I never saw it, but I ran into a number of producers and directors over the years that all shared similar stories that were burnt.
Hmm.
And it's unfortunate because it's not just that company. There's a lot of companies out there, and it happens. It happens a lot. You learn by experience.
Glenn,
Well,
So it's
this
sad.
this is actually a good segue because we have hopefully a brand new show starting very soon. I want Sal to watch it every now and then, but he's an entertainment lawyer. He's been an entertainment lawyer for over 40 years. He knows how to not manipulate, but how to know how to navigate
yeah.
It's a much needed thing.
the laws
Yeah,
for movie and media. And
yeah,
this is an important show because
yep,
nobody's doing a show like this.
Yeah.
And he's
Absolutely, I could say 100% hire an entertainment lawyer. The other
Yeah.
thing is I've seen way too many times is people that do independent stuff. And I mean, look, when I say independent, my budgets were under $20,000. So it's very independent, you know. Um, so the thing is I've seen many times where people don't have contracts or releases. And it's one of those things where I've had everybody, you never know what's going to happen. I'm not, Sal and I are best friends. Could pass away, God, could pass away and suddenly somebody could test something,
Yeah.
or suddenly we become arch center, and I did have an issue with one actor. I'm not going to give him any credit that happened during Fairview Falls that started doing a lot of prominent movies. He did movies with Bruce Willis, a number of movies with him.
oh wow.
We still marvel at the fact because I hear behind the scenes stories about the stuff that he pulls on set. And it's like, I don't understand how this guy still keeps getting work. Sal and I joke about it all the time. Sal knows
Yeah,
over, but I'm not going to give him any credit. I'm not going to name him.
No, you don't have to.
And when we went to release Fairy Falls, he had somebody contact me and they tried to stop the movie from being released.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'm like, nope, here's his contract. And they couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
But I've heard the flip side of stories where things have happened and people have not been able to release movies.
Yeah.
So, and it's on both ends. I mean, it's a kind of thing where, you always, whether you're an actor, whether you're a director, always look at everything,. Always have somebody look at stuff.
Yeah. You have.
I've always tried to be a friend. I've always tried my best to support people because I wouldn't have had the accomplishments had it not been for people like Sal, that's helped supported
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Right.
projects I've done over the years. These days now, I've moved. I do more documentary work. I work for companies like Seven Films and Vinegar Syndrome and Arrow Films. Lorber. Probably one of the most recognizable projects I did was about 4 or 5 years back. Shout Factory released a big, huge box set of all the Friday the 13th movies, and
Oh,
Michael
wow.
Gingold and I were blessed. One of the few people that we were able to have two documentary featurettes on that. But we've won awards. I've been Rondo nominated. We've won Rondos. One of the last big full-length feature documentaries, we had a Hollywood premiere for it. Was for a movie called The New York Ninja. We did a documentary, feature-length documentary for that.
Hmm.
One of the other ones I can't recommend enough for Vinegar Syndrome's hands down one of my favorite projects to work on was a movie called a documentary for a feature called for a movie called Spookies, and we did a number of featurettes on it. We also did the feature length documentary film on it. You can get the movie through Spookies, and I'm really hoping they re-release it in 4K because we could add some additional stuff to it. But that really opened up doors for me, that project, and developed a lot of great partnerships, a lot of great friendships, with one of the surviving directors, or two of the, and producer, and one of the late director's spouses. And I've ended up doing several different projects with them, and they're just such salt of the earth, fantastic, supportive people. And so I've made a lot of great relationships in the industry, over the years. But documentary stuff is kind of a big passion for me these days because, like that movie, that was an opportunity to tell a story. And just in a nutshell, um, that's a movie, just to give you a sense of what it's about, because I strongly recommend people check that out. It's basically the idea of Spookies. It was a movie called Twisted Souls that was suddenly overtaken. All the original people that worked on it were fired off. They brought in another team, another set of group of actors, got all these extra scenes, sandwiched it together, and released it. Um, and it's a movie that in many ways doesn't make sense. It's a fun movie to make sense, but when you understand what happened behind the scenes, it's completely batshit crazy. And the documentary we do tells the story about what happened behind the scenes, and it's just absolutely crazy.
Mhm.
It, I would say, and I'm a big fan of. There's a Troll 2 is one of the worst movies out there, but there's been documentaries done about that. It's right up there with that. Where it's a must-see movie because it's a lot of fun, but the story behind it is just insane what these people went through. And the cool thing is that Frank Farrell, who was the producer on that movie, is actually now working on doing a sequel to Spookies, which I'll probably be involved with in some capacity. And I read some early drafts for it, and it's a lot of fun. So that's something that hopefully in a not too distant future we'll see something with that.
Oh, okay, it's good.
Like I'm just looking as you're speaking. I'm looking at it, and I totally forgot that I think I wrote a theme song for every one of your movies. Right?
Yeah.
Fairview Falls.
Yep. Every one of them.
You will live.
Every one of them.
And the Tenement. I remember. I still have the magazine saved. The Fangoria magazine. There was an article, and I did the Tenement. I just jammed. Glenn asked me, "Can you do something?" I said, "I don't know that." Took my little 4-track out, my keyboard, guitar, and I just jammed the song that's on the poster that you guys did.
Mm-hmm.
I started jamming. I put this thing together. Glenn loved it. Ended up to be, on the DVD where you press play, or the menu.
It's the opening. Yeah. It's the opening. Yeah, it's the opening.
Right, opening
theme.
And Fangoria magazine, I still have it saved. I remember you told me about that. They said the music was one of the best horror, some of the best music they ever heard in an independent horror movie. You remember that?
Yeah.
You remember, Glenn, that article?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I figured
that's good. And you've been mentioned a number of times in Fangoria since then too. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I have a stack of magazines of all stuff from your movies.
You've gone on and done too. It's yeah.
Sins of the Father, I wrote, right?
You were in everything, so you were in most of them. All of them.
Like I said, you're just everywhere.
And then Glenn also, not only did I write the actual names of his movies, but Glenn used a lot of my other songs in different parts of the movie.
Yep.
Can't Love Without You, right?
Yep.
Oh, I love that. That's my favorite one.
Yeah. I was a scene with the car at the car with coming out of the car.
Yeah. Well, so it's during one of the serial killers, during a kill actually, and it's also in the car as well.
Right.
I gotta ask you a question with serial, like with your movies. The main characters at the serial killers, were they all men? Did you ever put women in there, or
we have females? Yep.
Yeah. I was wondering, because
haven't done that. Haven't done that.
That would really catch on when a lot of people today.
Yeah.
I did do a twist, and I don't want to give away. There is not transgender, but there is a twist which makes it unexpected, which plays into it with one of the stories. It's called Truth, Justice, and the American Way, which is one of the stories in the Tales of Light and Dark series. There is a twist in that one, which kind of plays in. But actually, the only one that project that Sal wasn't involved with was the Tales series, and I planned on doing a season 2. But unfortunately, it was right after that I had lost my job. Then just as I started gearing up, I was going to actually continue that as a movie, revamp it into a movie. Then I lost the place where I was living, had to buy a new house. I was like, okay,
oh boy,
let's put this on hold. So I kind of stepped away for a while.
Yeah.
So the season 2 never happened. But I keep threatening Sal. I said, we're going to work on something again one day.
Did you see
all the way up from Long Island up to here?
Glenn, I don't know if you saw it. My buddy Leon John Jock just posted. He said he has over 900 bands on his roster. You have genres to use in the movies. They've been thrilled, as everyone would be, in fact, almost guaranteed to sell because of the band music, because they're big, huge fan bases. A cult favorite instantly. And he said, and me, Gene, could get three contracts to keep the trilogy open down the road. So we can always figure out where we're going. I can get funding now. I couldn't get funding years ago. I'm working with 5 different film companies that I can get funding for and get funding from. So there's a whole different animal now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, now there's a lot more avenues too. I mean, things like Kickstarter.
And I'm sure you got contacts.
So many different ways you can go now.
Yeah.
Even just promotion. I mean, the cost of promotion is nothing. You just turn on your camera.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's back in the day. It's like go back 25, 26 years ago when I started the Genesis. I mean, my way of building, promotion for was just renting space at conventions and start advertising,
Yep.
and going around and handing
Be
out,
heard, be seen. That's it. Yeah.
pamphlets and things like that. And one of the things we did is an early bit of shtick, and it helped. Back in when you could kind of use SEO to your advantage on websites. Now Google is learned. You can't do
Yeah.
as some of these tricks don't work as anymore. But I used to take the killer, bring it around, and have the killer in costume pose with various celebrities, and I would get link backs to my site that would help bring traffic in
There
that
you
way, and that
go.
was
There you
another
go.
means to
Yep.
promote. So it was very much guerrilla style promotion, to be able to do grassroots promotion, and that whole thing helped also serve to put me where I am today in my career. These days, my day job, I've marketed for, Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies. So, I'm always nonstop, and doing different things. But I mean, all of that, the genesis of a lot of what I've learned has come from that.
Oh, that's cool. Is that what you do for a living? Is that your main thing? Your
Yeah,
market?
and then I also I still own my own production company and do the documentary work as well.
Oh, okay.
These days I haven't shot as much stuff just because of health issues. But
Right.
I still produce, I still edit, I direct as much where I can. Like I said, Mike Ingold and I actively work on projects. We do probably on average about half a dozen projects or so a year.
Do you know a actor named Chris Todd? He's a big horror guy. Do you know who he is?
That name does sound familiar
He's
to
a
me.
big
Yeah.
guy. You know Chris Todd, right?
I hooked
Sal?
them up. I hooked you guys up a while back on
See?
Facebook.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's a
Now,
good
okay,
friend of
right,
mine. Very
yes,
good friend of
yes.
mine. And
That's why I
I
remember
think,
from Facebook.
yeah, he's really, I mean, he's freaking is awesome with the horror. That's why I was wondering when I was thinking, do you have to know him? But Sal, you did hook him up with him. I remember you
Yeah.
said you were
Yep.
going to do that.
Yes. Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did.
And I mean, that's the great thing too now with social media. I've met so many different people and being able to network too. And it's,
Yeah, it's great with that. That's social. One good thing about
I
social
mean,
media.
anybody coming into it now trying to do stuff they haven't made. It's so,
Yeah,
but on the flip side, it's also much more competitive
Right.
right,
Very competitive.
right.
because everybody can do. I mean, the thousands of dollars of equipment I spent. Now I can shoot stuff on my
I was
phone.
gonna say a good iPhone,
Some
man.
people do.
I
Everybody,
mean,
it's like,
and I'll admit it, because I mean, there's documentary stuff. There's
yeah,
times where we need to be extremely discreet. This shoots in 8K, and
yes,
I've literally used this for some shots where I can't
yes,
take in a regular camera.
yeah. A lot of people
Well,
do that. A lot.
on the Joe Spinell interview that I did, Michael Gingo filmed me with his phone when we were at the
Yeah,
cemetery when I'm
Yeah,
singing.
right. Because you're not going to walk into a cemetery with a full camera on and the
yeah.
whole
Exactly,
package and
exactly.
start, because I mean, people start asking questions. It's
Yeah,
like,
you're right. No,
not
you're
that we
right.
were doing
Also,
anything disrespectful. We were honoring his memory. But at the same point, I mean, when you're also dealing with a certain budget, you don't have the liberties to do certain things. And sometimes
No,
that's, it is what it is.
no. But you're right. Those cameras shoot. I know people who shot everything with that one camera.
Yeah.
well, there's that movie. There's a movie called Tangerine. I don't know if you guys ever
Oh,
heard.
I know that movie. Yes,
That was filmed with an iPhone 5.
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
Going back a long
yes,
time. And
Right.
the movie won all kind of awards. And the whole
yes.
movie
I'm telling
was
you.
filmed with
Yeah.
an iPhone 5, even before these phones we have now. They're 100
Yeah,
times better.
Yeah.
iPhone
And
5.
what's interesting too is you think about, you look at COVID, how many people were shooting stuff
Mm-hmm.
content wise. I mean, using just regular like basic equipment.
yeah. Because people they
I
couldn't go anywhere. They were
you
doing
couldn't do anything,
home stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, there's been full films released that's used stuff from COVID.
yeah, yeah. A lot of
That's
good
the one
stuff came
regret I
out.
have, that, when everything was so desolate, I'm like, why didn't I go out and shoot B-roll for stuff? I'm like,
I
why
know.
didn't I do it? I regret doing that.
Yeah, that would have been some great horror, like the streets that no one's
Oh,
around, and
crazy. It was
right.
crazy. I
Yeah.
mean, thank God we're past that till,
Oh yeah. Thank
knock
God.
wood, no other major thing comes along.
Who
But
the hell knows what they're gonna do next? Everybody can't get rid of what they got anymore. I got
oh,
this, you got that. It lingers what they do. The drones.
yeah.
I think those drones came and did something. To be honest with you, that's a whole nother thing in my head.
Well, that's the other thing. We use drones frequently, the documentary work, and I said, I'm afraid to, I have a 5,000 plus, cinema drone. I'm like, I don't know if I want to too easily launch that and use it anymore. I'm afraid of somebody because we actually had on
Yeah.
one of the documentaries somebody take shots at my drone
Yeah, see?
at one point, and I didn't realize it until after the fact when we were zooming in. I'm like, oh my god! And I'm like, and you could see them with a rifle shooting at the drone.
Trying to shoot
Yeah.
it down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, people were doing that after they had that drone thing going on in Jersey and Long Island.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They were
Now
all
it's
ready to-
especially because I mean we tend to shoot a lot of stuff in Jersey. I told Mike, I said, don't think I'm bringing down a drone in Jersey
No.
anytime. So that's not happening. No way.
Not at that time. It was like crazy. Everybody was like
Yeah,
going.
and it's so weird too because it's like you don't hear anything about it.
It stopped.
And
Like
it's
out
like,
of
is it
nowhere.
because the next news story came along? But it is really weird how like overnight the stories just disappear.
No, you know why? And I'm going to tell you, I'm a conspiracy theorist. They did what they had to do. They infected us. They took off, and now they're doing something else.
Yep.
That's it. That's why I can't breathe, and you can't stop.
Oh,
And this
God.
one,
Think about all the people that got that vaccination during COVID. Who the
Yeah.
hell knows what they shot in the?
I had
I mean,
3 or 4
yeah.
of them,
Yeah, I used to
I had
always hear
none. Zero.
that, years down.
and I've
the
still got COVID.
You see?
line,
Yeah.
So
I got this zero.
yeah.
Guys,
I mean,
we're
me,
almost
I
done.
said, well, let me tempt fate. I said, because I have such, immune issues. I said, but I debated. I put it off for as long as possible because I was like, what if? What if?
That was a horror movie in itself, right there.
Yeah.
That
We're
was-
almost
Oh,
done,
my-
guys. We're almost done. We've got extra time. Glenn, how you
Oh, my
feeling? Is
goodness.
everything good?
Wow,
Yeah,
we're over an hour. I didn't even realize.
Yeah.
No,
that.
it's good.
Wow.
So it was
Wow.
very interesting. But
No,
so
I'm
Glenn,
enjoying
Yeah,
it.
me
I'm
too.
just letting you know. That's all.
So like,
Yeah,
what are
it's
you
fun.
like? What are you up to now? Like, is it like you said, you got something maybe brewing? You're gonna do something else?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, the most recent project is a disc that just came out called "The Possession of Joel Delaney," and that
Okay.
came out through Vinegar Syndrome. So we did a documentary featurette on that one. So that's the most recent project. Nothing immediately lined up. There are some things that and one I can say about because it will come out. It's not like it's letting the cat out of the bag. They showed in the Montreal at the Fantasia Film Festival. They showed a documentary we did on the Deadly Spawn, which is Ted Bohas's movie. That disc hasn't come out yet. It's been a couple years delayed.
Okay.
I'm hearing it may finally come out this year, but that was a lot of fun to work on. We went back to the house where the movie was shot on. We shot another interview with the actress, which I'm going to look at my text for a second because I just learned from Mike. They're going to be showing it at a convention.
oh,
Coming. Yeah. It is
like a horror convention.
it's with Elizabeth Marner Brooks. It's an interview. It's going to be showing at Cinema Wasteland that she's a guest at. So they're going to be showing the interview documentary featurette that we did with her. I
And
don't have
where
the
is
dates in
that?
front of
Where
me.
is that located? Cinema Wasteland.
Let's see. Let me take a quick peek. Let's see.
People might want to go. It might.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Cinema Wasteland.
Because that's cool. Because people like, hey, Sal, if it's close, we'll go.
Yeah, babe. Well, that's the thing.
Okay, so
See,
that is coming up
Glenn is-
on April 4th, 5th, and 6th, and that is in Strongsville, Ohio.
Oh, I don't think so. Ohio. Darn it! I was
because-
hoping it would be somewhere close.
So yeah, Elizabeth Marner Brooks will be there. She, like I said, she's one of the actresses in Deadly Spawn, so she'll be there, and they're going to show the piece that we did with her that hasn't been released yet. So if you're at the show and you see it, that's you'll get an advanced look at one of the featurettes that'll be on the DVD when it finally comes out.
Yeah, it's like Glenn lives pretty far away from me. But then so many times I was saying that I love being you guys do that to do a documentary of my life, But
I'm even further now.
Huh?
I'm even further now.
Yeah.
Where you used to come up to him about 45 minutes further than that now.
Oh my goodness!
And I'm actually living in the town that Sins of the Father is the fictitious town. They use the locales and stuff. I'm living in the town that Fairview Falls is based on.
Oh,
Who knew
my
that was ever going to happen?
You will lose.
Which is like
your
the
life.
line in Fairview Falls. It's like the shit kicking town. I get my own lines, but there's literally the center of town is a gas station, a garage I've never seen open in the 10 plus years I've lived here, a bar and a pizzeria. and that's
like
it.
it's
Oh,
like
the
it's
post office.
it
That's
sounds
the
like
whole town.
it sounds like It's a Wonderful Life. Remember
Sounds
that?
like Zombie World.
No, it's creepy. Actually, that
Yeah, I'd
shit.
love to do. Sal, I may have to take you up on that offer because one of these years, because I have suspicion it's going to be the craziest documentary.
Oh yeah, I think so too. You're right. You would. I'll watch it.
Yeah. Sounds
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
Wow.
Fairview Falls. That there's a lot of creepy looking areas. I remember when we were filming it. Like I drove home with a bad toothache and sick. I must have left this. When did we stop shooting? 4 o'clock in the morning,
Oh, easily, yeah.
right?
Where's that?
Yeah,
Upstate?
Upstate.
Fairview Falls. That was like Tenement was the same thing. Was like that late in the morning.
The
And you
tenement.
started early in the morning, didn't you? We started like 6 o'clock in the morning. We didn't get done till 3 or 4 in the morning too.
Oh,
The tenement that night we came to the
That was crazy.
bar.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I hate filming overnight. Oh my God, I used to hate it. Hate it. But I love, filming overnight. You got to like 24 hours sometimes. You're filming back to one, back to one, back to
Well,
one.
you got to get the scenes in. You got to
yeah.
on a schedule for the people. You got limited time for wherever you're using as far as location.
Yeah.
And you've got limited daytime and limited nighttime. So
Yeah.
When I was shooting Sins of the Father, I was up at one point for over 48 hours shooting straight
Wow.
with different
Yeah.
crews, and I passed out in the middle of VFW. They threw a
Wow.
bucket of cold
Oh
water
my
on me. I sat back up. I'm like, all right, everybody back to work.
Wow.
I'm doing a
Let
little.
me tell you, sometimes the best things are like that. I filmed once 27 hours. We only had pizza, and then the bathrooms broke, and nobody could go to the bathroom. And I remember that carefully.
Now, if I tried to do that, I'd pass out, and they'd be carrying me on a stretcher.
Yeah.
That'd be the end of it.
You know what's
Bring you
funny?
to the hospital.
That one movie that I was on, we shot out in the woods. We were like deep in the woods. There was no lights anywhere.
Oh.
We shot it as a daylight scene because the actors had to go home.
I've done that.
So we had them big floodlights to make it as bright as it can be, like daylight. It was crazy. I never seen like everything's dark and then it's all bright right there. Oh my god!
Tales of Light and Dark. We did two full days for one of the episodes, geo killing out in the woods, no bathrooms, no, yeah. It was,
Oh yeah.
so I've done it. Yeah.
It's scary.
And
That's scary in
Falls
itself. No bathroom.
has like 90 minutes of extra stuff deleted.
Oh, that one's
amazing.
packed. Pop up trivia, you name it. Yeah, it's crazy.
What I love about
then,
there's the scene that when we were joking around and what's the name grabbed my arm real hard, the guy, and I said, "Oh, my balls!"
I'll never forget that.
Jerked. We were carrying them up. There's like right.
Oh my god.
Taylor, me,
Growing pain.
Oh, that was good, and it was hot. It was like 90.
Yeah. That was 90. And then Carrie and Carrie Terrell and Joe Paulo Castro were tied together in this little shed.
Oh,
it was 90 something degrees outside, and we had a burning wood stove in the shed going.
Oh my
so
god!
It had to be easily 100+ degrees. It was the same thing when we shot with Susan Lorraine. It was 90 something degrees out, and we shot with the hot lights up in the top of this barn, Cimarron Ranch, and that was brutal.
I shot like that. My son did a movie with Finding Forrester and we shot in Manhattan in 95-degree heat, winter scenes. Everybody had to wear down coats, hats, gloves.
Yeah, it's horrible.
And I was like, this is nuts. This is nuts. But it is what it is, It is.
You do what you got to do to get the shots.
Yeah.
exactly. That's the thing. Jackie Chan, he said Jackie Chan will jump off a roof and break his leg, and then said, "Did you get the shot? Go to the hospital."
Yeah, go to the hospital.
Make sure I get the shot for it. Breaks everything. Jack.
Well, it's the same thing. It's like it was a number of years ago. It hasn't been released yet. There was a zombie movie called Z Dead End. That has Kane Hodder, who plays Jason for Friday the 13th. And
we interviewed him a couple years ago. Yeah.
We were on the set and got to play some zombie extra featured ones. So I'm like, man, I'm gonna, and I'm not that physically fit. I'm like, I'm gonna throw myself in. So it was raining out when we do it. I'm topless. They have all the makeup on, so I'm freezing my ass off. Yeah. It's cold to begin with. It's raining, and I'm climbing all over and throwing myself against this ambulance trying to break in. And I'm not the most comfortable position. And they cut the scene. Finally they wrap. They're like, oh, tripod leg got in the shot. They didn't use the scene.
They edited it out. Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
What
They
happens?
don't use it. All
Thinking,
that.
like, so I don't know how much of that scene, if any, from that shot made it in. So I'm
Yeah,
just like,
that's
but
what I mean. You could
like
be
you hear
filmed.
stories about that all the time.
Yeah, yeah,
Somebody will be in a scene and it gets cut out, or
yeah. Filming
it's
for
crazy.
hours and it's cut.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just thought it was really cool. I said I try and stay in touch with as many people as possible, and I sent a birthday wish to one of the actors who was in Fairview Falls, who was an extra, and we shot a scene. We were running late, and it was a kill scene that happens outside the pub that Sal works in, and the scene didn't look right. After the fact, I'm like, I can't use it. I got to cut it from the movie. And I felt bad because this guy's in the movie, was there all day long waiting for a scene. So, it still lives on the full scene. I put it as a deleted extra on there. But, I sent him a birthday wish and he goes, it was really cool. And he sent me, he said, he goes, that scene really helped get, it was something like the effect, like, really helped give me the confidence and really helped
Yeah.
kind of inform who I am today working on that. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. That somebody would say that I had some kind of impact, however, on somebody. And I've been happy, to kind of have some impact, whatever it is over the years, with people. And that's the whole reason for doing this, for me is to have some kind of emotional reaction, whether it's, with the actors, working on stuff and they have some takeaway, or the people that watch it. I remember after we screened, a Tenement at a film festival, and I had somebody in the audience come up after me, and they had told me how one of the scenes they felt it was so lifelike, and it really resonated with them, and they had to walk out of the room because it really impacted them.
Yeah.
And one of the actors also played a junkie. We had amazing work by Brian Spears. Did this really graphic, realistic scene of a junkie, from an OD. And what's crazy about it is many, many years, this is only a few years ago. He's now not an actor anymore, but his daughter is in school and he goes into his, I think it was a health class or science class. And here's could you imagine all of a sudden a slide comes up and it's your dad as a junkie on the screen, no permission, no context added, and was not good. And it was really an embarrassing moment because here's this kid, and they're like, these kids, they're like, that's your dad, So it was, and I went to the school and I'm like, hey, I'm all for art, because I supported arts and education. I said, but you didn't have any permission. And I went down a whole thing, and I was like, I want to know what's going to happen. I was like, I said, this is,
that's not good. That's not good.
Yeah. I said, this is infringing on licensing. I said, it's copyright infringement. Right. I said, you used a licensed image without permission, out of context, that had a harmful impact. And of course, it was brushed under the rug, and I was not, but it's.
Not good. That's not good. That's not good.
But I did everything I could. And I said, you want me to pursue it? Because I'll pursue you. No, we went, but it's crazy things that happen like that,
Yeah.
That's one of the stories that was unfortunately a negative impact, but thankfully most things have been positive impact that's happened for people over the years.
Well, sometimes you got to have the negative with the positive too. So.
Yeah. Well, but
right.
yeah.
So Glenn, how can people see your films then?
Well, like I said, until we get them back out in the masses, you can definitely go on YouTube, and you can find the Tales of Light and Dark. Maybe after this, you guys can put a link out there to my YouTube channel.
Sure.
And
sure.
you can also go to lightanddark.net. As much as I've gone into a whole arena doing better stuff, I've sadly let my website fall into a very aged, archaic look because I have no time to update it. It's one of the, I guess if I had the time to update, but you can go to lightanddark.net. You can get links to there. I do preface it that I do web work today that is a million times better, except for my own web, because I just don't have any time to work on it. I'm ensconced in a million other projects. But again, you can go to YouTube. You can find out more about projects I've worked on IMDb. You can look me up on there. Vinegar Syndrome, check out Spookies. I can't speak highly enough about it. Another favorite project of mine, which is released through Arrow Films, and now you can get the 4K version, which is all regions was released, is Alice, Sweet Alice. Is another one we did. Is one of the documentaries I'm very proud of that Mike and I worked on. Was just it's such a fun movie too, and one of the very first roles that Brooke Shields worked on.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah, Alice, Sweet Alice.
Yeah,
Something else.
and that drew inspiration too. It's kind of because the character in my movie Fear of the Dark, Alice, came from Alice, Sweet Alice, because I'm a fan of that movie.
I heard of that before. Yeah, that's weird.
I used to hang out with Brooke Shields. Did you know that?
Oh, God. Yeah, I
See?
figured. you
What did I
probably
say?
Of
Now
course.
it's full circle. Sal knows
course. Of
everyone.
course.
Everyone.
You know what, Sal? Hook him up on my page and he can, whatever permission you give, I put it on my page. I have a film page and a music page.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people on it. So get him on there.
Yeah. And you can also check me out on Facebook. You can put in Light and Dark Productions on Facebook. The links also, if you go to lightanddark.net, I think there's an about section that has all the links to the different social media. These days, mostly the Facebook and YouTube are the ones that I keep up to date the most.
All
You
right.
have a Vimeo page. It's most of the same content. In some cases, there's some content that's on Vimeo because YouTube has a habit of censoring things.
Yeah, I know.
And that's why we want to start another Roku channel, because we got a lot of friends in the business, and their YouTube links are not getting seen, and there's a lot of problems. So
yeah,
AI is a blessing and a curse in disguise. Their AI algorithms are too quick to knock stuff down.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. No, but get him on my page. Sal, is he on my page?
Of course. I think I probably invited you to it.
Well, invited him on, get him on, and then he could post, and you could put anything on my page, anything.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and it reaches a lot of people. It goes all over the world, like this channel. We're like Gene's channel, so all over.
It's been a pleasure
and
to be on
get
the
a lot
show.
of
I
vocal.
appreciate it.
yeah, we're glad
you
to have you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thanks again. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks a lot, everyone.
Yeah, it was a great night. It was great.
Really
night,
enjoyed you having me,
good
Glenn.
info,
Yeah,
man.
appreciate it.
Yes, great show, brother.
Yeah, and you feel better
That's
too,
fun.
man, because
Feel
I know
better,
it's like
thanks.
feel better.
I'm heading right in. I have a date with my bed to lay down.
Yeah, me
I had a
too,
brand
me too.
new Tempur-Pedic bed put in last weekend, and I'm like, that's the rest of my
Go
life.
enjoy it. Go enjoy it.
Yeah,
right,
feel
bye.
better. And
Bye,
great
everybody.
show, and we'll keep in touch.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good
All
night.
right, take care.
Thanks.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
All right,
cool
brother.
show.
Thanks.
Oh, there goes the
Oh,
confetti.
there's the confetti.